Matt Emerzian, thank you so much for being here on the Passion Project. I am so stoked and honored and just excited and I'm really curious with you more than maybe anybody else. And I'm just super stoked to have you here. It's going to be super fun.
I'm honored to be here, and I can't wait to see where this goes.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting. I'm assuming, and I'm going to very quickly get to who you are and what you do, so people are like, who is this guy? If they don't already know you, and a lot of people already do from books like this, you have 4 books, et cetera, et cetera. But before I get into that, just a little story. So I've spent probably more time preparing for yours just because of who you are and your story, and I just wanted to make sure I nail it. Like that's how I roll. And yet, I'm doing a full pivot. So we were on the phone a little while ago.
Yep.
And you told me a story. And at home, I had a chicken skin moment. So I've been working on this, being prepared, make sure I was all ready to roll. And I'm throwing out the start because I feel like the universe was talking to me this morning and right up until you got here. So first and foremost, and we're going to get deep, but I'm going to start with the person that we were introduced by. Who sat in that chair, and you were just referencing her.
Yep.
Tell us a little who that is and how we met and who she is to you.
Yeah, Jennifer Friend.
Our
favorite person in the world. Jennifer is a dear friend of both of ours, obviously, and I had the pleasure of meeting her probably 15 years ago. And I was the keynote speaker for the UC Irvine had a summer financial literacy program for students, and I was their commencement speaker at the graduation. And then afterwards, a group said, hey, we're going over here to Second Harvest Food Bank because there's this thing going on called 214 square feet. And I'm like, well, what is that? They said, why don't you come with us? I said, great, let's go. So I go over there and I see this experience, right, that they had built that was someone homeless or hotel living's real life mock-up of their home.
And 214 feet, that's
square feet. Yeah.
That's like 20 by 11
that's
or something
right.
like that.
Yeah, it was tiny.
And like a family of 5.
Correct. And so I didn't know who this person was. I just showed up at this thing. And you go and you sit in this room and there's writings on the wall and all this kind of stuff. And like this is where this one child sat and wrote and read. And so I'm just like so immersed in this thing. And all of a sudden I come out and then all of a sudden someone, hey, Matt, I'd like you to meet this person. Her name's Jennifer Friend. I'm like, hi, nice to meet you, Jennifer. And she's like, yeah, that's like where I used to live. I'm like, wait, these are your writings? And it just was, I was just blown away. And so
today, she's the CEO of Project Hope Alliance.
That's right, she is. And Jennifer and I quickly became friends, and it was really, whatever you believe in, God, the universe, Buddha, whatever you believe in, something bigger put us in touch with each other. And she was at this place where she had an uber successful career, right, as an attorney.
Yep.
And yet she had this side of her story that the world really didn't know. And I believe Project Hope was looking to get a new CEO. And so I just kept telling her, I said, hey, this is it. Go tell your story. The world needs to hear your story. It needs to hear your truth. And you watch what happens when you do it. And we had so many conversations about it. She was definitely afraid of it. I got it. I understood. Yeah. She has siblings, all that, her brothers. But thank God she made the decision to leap. And we've been just dear friends and also just really big fans and supporters. Because running a nonprofit organization is not for everyone. It's not easy.
For sure. Well, let's stop there. So if anybody's interested, Jennifer Friend's incredible.
Yep.
And you can find her on the Passion Project. I think she was like my 2nd or 3rd interview. And she's incredible. And she tells the whole story. And there's really 2 major forces that helped her make the decision. A sermon about Esther and Matt Emerzian, the 2 of you.
Matt
it's incredible.
Esther, yes.
So that was one. And then she introduced us.
Yep.
And then this morning, you were driving here and you told me, hey, what did you do this morning? Not what did you do? What did you learn this morning?
Well, interesting enough, that same day I met Jennifer Friend, I also met someone named Nicole. And she was the head of Second Harvest Food Bank. Now Nicole is the head of Goodwill Orange County. And so I was speaking with her last week. We hadn't spoken in probably 10 years. And she said, I would just want to catch up. I miss talking to you. And I'm like, well, I'm coming down to Orange County to do this podcast. And she's like, I have a leadership meeting. Would you mind coming and doing a keynote to my team, 60 leaders? Whatever, the keynote was great. The group was great. But what I learned about Goodwill is I didn't realize how much they focused on hiring people who had disabilities. And during my keynote, we do this thing where we exchange wristbands. And there was one person who didn't have a partner, and she happened to be deaf. And I said, well, I'll be your partner. Mm. And so I sat down with her, which rarely I get to sit down with the participants. They're all paired up, and I just kind of stand and watch. And they had a translator there. And so we talked with this translator for about 3 minutes. And afterwards, I said, how would you say you matter to somebody? And she said, you say it like this. And so in sign language, this is how you tell somebody that they matter.
How cool is that?
And I've never, 17 years of doing this, I've never learned this.
That's so neat.
And it was a special moment.
I love that. And I just wanted to capture that real quick because it tells.
It just happened.
Like I said, totally pivoting. Typically, I would have gone through a normal introduction and here are some of your accolades and things you do.
Yep.
And we will get there. But you're wearing the You Matter shirt.
Because of you.
Oh, well, I'll take whatever
Yes.
credit is given. You will see one of your books, one of your 4 books, You Matter. And now we know it goes, how does it go?
Like this.
It's so cool. I love that
amazing?
you learned that this morning.
I know.
And so what this also does for me is it shines a light on who you surround yourself with is who you become. I met you because Jennifer said, you guys need, Mark, Matt, you guys need to meet.
Right.
And here we are. And it's
Yep.
been lovely. And so we're going to start going further down. But there's one more piece about what happened today where I had to like stop and kind of throw this out. So right before I came over here, my wife was heading out. She's like, you should check out what, so my youngest son's name is Reef. He's 13 and he just started at a new school that it seems to be amazing for him. And we're driving him 35 minutes away specifically for this school. My wife and I, Randy, we were both public school kids. My big kids were both public school kids.
Yep.
We live right here. They went to school right here. They
Yep.
rode bikes. It was super easy. And Reef, my youngest, is going far because this is the right school for him. But I read this right before I left the house. And I was like, so I just think, I'm going to send you home with this because what this does, and I know I haven't given the listeners really clear understanding of who you are and why you're here and what you do.
Absolutely.
Which is amazing, and we'll get there. But I started reading this and I was like, everything that I believe in, from bits and pieces of learnings and listenings and what you do, is encapsulated in the criteria for this school. And so what this is the safe classroom commitment form that every student signs. I mean, I truly just got this a half hour ago. And I'm just highlighted a couple of notes in here. So lesson discussion topics. One of the bullet points, here's a couple of the bullet points. Bad negative thoughts produce chemicals that make us feel bad. Good positive thoughts produce chemicals that make us feel good. We often have thoughts that are not true. I tell my son all the time, and I use the quote, you are not your brain, because he has a negative tilt a lot of the time, and so we're always training him. And then just after that it says, thoughts equal feelings, equal actions, equal habits, equal quality and length of our life. I just got chicken skin again. I was like, when you've spent 13 years with a child trying to help instill this stuff, and then you see the school is doing it every day, and then it goes, things that I have the power to control, what I believe, what I spend time thinking about, what I spend time talking about, how kind I am to others and myself. So I'm foreshadowing, this is your whole world, or bits of your whole world that we're going to talk. Look at your shirt, look at the book.
Right.
You matter. And to know that my kid that has struggled with a lot of these things is now in an environment that's the commitment they have to sign.
Right.
And they talk about all day, every day. It was stunning. And then at the very end, it says, I will not bully myself by repeatedly thinking unkind things about myself. I will then question my thoughts when they are negative, and I will do my best to replace them with truthful, positive thoughts. I was like, peace out, mic drop, hallelujah. So,
I mean, the fact that you found this place for your son is just beyond incredible.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So, and the irony is, Randy gives this to me as she's getting in her car driveway. Read this, and I'm like reading. I skimmed it, and I'm like, I'm going to meet with Matt right now.
Yeah.
Like this is out of the Matt You Matter playbook.
It is.
Okay.
1,000,000%.
1,000,000%.
Yep.
So it was a crazy morning, and I love that the universe was talking to me, big time. Yours and mine.
Yep.
Okay. This is super fun because we've now set the tone for who you are. I don't have to like hey, here are all the things. I'm still going to do it.
Okay, great.
But so some of what we do, and then we're going to get to Q&A and let you talk and not me. So as I mentioned, this is one of your 4 books, best-selling. This book has a foreword by Ken Blanchard.
Yes. Yeah.
It goes back to like if you listen to your podcast, because you have an incredible podcast called The Middle, the people on your podcast are incredible. And so you start to see that proximity is power, who you surround yourself, like your circle of the Jennifer friends and Nicole, and I don't know if I'm in that
Absolutely.
equation, but like who you surround yourself is who you become, and who you surround yourself is what you turn into. And we prophesize that with our kids all the time. But it's really amazing when you start to see who has read and given you testimonials, who has offered to write your foreword, who has been on your podcast. And it's all these it's funny, in my head, I'm like, Matt is a beautiful man. Now you're 6'2", and like, but and like if I was to see you in a dark alley, I'd be like, I'm going to go the other way. But who you are and what you do is really incredible, and you are a beautiful guy, and what you've created. So you mentioned you keynote spoke this morning.
Yep.
How many have you done keynotes?
Oh, wow. Probably 400.
Yeah. It's incredible. And we're not talking small companies that you've spoken with, and we'll get more into that. But you're a TEDx speaker with like over 300,000 views on YouTube. You have like 3 million students being served by your organization each year. I mean, it's really, truly incredible, Matt, and I'm just super proud of you. So, and again, going back to what you learned today, I just love how it all comes together.
Absolutely.
So it's an incredible journey. One of the things that we're going to focus on today is, like, this is your life, Matt. We're gonna truly go soup to nuts, and your life, you did a lot of things. I mean, we mentioned UCLA. Or I think I mentioned it. You went to UCLA and you played water polo.
Yeah.
No small feat.
No.
And then when we were sitting together, we realized we're about the same age, and you played polo, I played polo, very different level. And you're like, oh, did you know Derek Dundas?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I've known Derek since probably preschool. We were the same grade all the way through high school, and he was your roommate for 4 years.
That's right.
That's incredible too. So
I know.
Small.
You know, it's a funny thing because I grew up in Modesto, California.
Well, that was where we were going to go next.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, it's fine. Keep going.
And so we partied in orchards and swam in canals, and somehow I learned water polo. I don't even know how and really why, and I happened to be good at it. It's just a freak thing because Modesto's not the thriving metropolis of water polo.
Right.
I come to UCLA. I meet Derek. He's like, hey, let's go down to Newport and CDM. So I'm like, okay, cool. And then I walk into the mecca of water polo. Yeah. And he's like, let's go over to the high school. Guys play pickup games. Like, I don't have a Speedo. He's like, just wear your underwear. So I show up in my tidy whities at CDM, and we have to hop the fence to get in. And all of a sudden, Oding and all of these frickin' studs start showing up. And from that day forward, I became the guy that plays polo in his skibbies.
I bet you did.
In the mecca of water polo. And it was the worst moniker to get.
You get your ass handed to you from time to time.
Totally.
Well, we're probably 1 mile from Newport Harbor High School.
Right.
We're 4 miles from Crondalmar High School, 2 of the elite high schools, and you were the guy that played here in your underpants.
That's right.
That's awesome. I love that story. But yeah, Derek is, a great family friend.
And Steve
Really
Coyne.
good. Steve Coyne. I saw Steve this morning.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't I don't know. All right. So we're going off tangents here, but
sorry.
It's a small world.
Yeah.
It is a very small world. But yeah, I saw Steve this morning. But so this is where the story kind of begins. You get your MBA. I'm truncating significantly. We're going to talk about it. You get your MBA at UCLA. You go out and seemingly get a dream job in the music business, and you're living this incredible life.
Right.
And then, boom.
Boom.
A big pivot happens.
Yeah.
Can we start? Well, no, that's not true. Typically, the stories that I hear and your message really start at the pivot.
Yeah.
Or right before what leads up to it. I'd really love to go back to Modesto.
Okay.
Can we do that?
Of course.
And I promise we will touch on all the things that have led you to where we are today. That's the goal. We are storytelling today.
Yeah.
But like people can go get an incredible amount of stories, and there's a million things that they can watch 1 million hours of you on YouTube, I would imagine, from all of your speeches, and they can read your books. But most of it, again, starts at this like 30 years old, post-college.
Right.
And I always believe there's something formative happens, and maybe not, but I'm really interested in see how you grew up and what led you here. So you
Wow.
mentioned Modesto. You did talk about underpants playing water polo, but let's talk about like growing up and family and like what was it like for you?
Yeah, it's thank you first of all, because I don't talk about this stuff that much. So this is a refreshing, and I have to kind of process through this a little bit. You know, I grew up in a small town. The crazy part is that I was born in La Jolla, and my parents had a house there. They sold for $38,000. They moved to Newport Beach. We lived about a quarter mile from here,
No way.
on Donnie Lane, I think it's called. They sold that house for $40,000, and they moved to Modesto because my dad worked for Gallo Wine, which is headquartered in Modesto. He spent 47 years there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, only company he's ever worked for his
That's
entire
amazing.
life. And so we lived on a cul-de-sac in a neighborhood called Sherwood Forest, and we lived on Buckingham Court. That was
Come
right
on.
off of
For real?
For real.
Modesto. Somebody's like,
Yeah.
that is amazing.
You had to go on King Richard to Little John to Buckingham from Robin Hood to get to our house. And
That is amazing.
no, it's hard to make it up, actually. And it was a great life. I mean, there was nothing, and Derek and I used to talk about this actually, because in Modesto we had nothing to do, whereas here you had surf. If there was a swell, life is awesome, right? And if there wasn't a swell, what do we do? And Derek and I used to talk about this. In Modesto, there was never a swell, right? So we had canals that we swam in. We partied in orchards, and we just had to get creative with how do we have fun and grow and play and be little kids. And I think that always looking to create and innovate and imagine something beyond what seemed so boring and plain and dull, like really drove us in a lot of ways to think outside the box. And I had the great fortune of getting to travel when I was younger. When I was in the 8th grade, I was playing soccer actually before water polo. Water polo came because I blew my knee out playing soccer, but I was on a team that went to Germany, and I played soccer in Germany, and I blew my knee out there. But at a young age, I started seeing this thing that was much bigger than Modesto. And so I was like, okay, I want to get out there. My brother's older than I am. In 1984, when he was looking at colleges, we came down to UCLA, and it was when the Olympics were happening. Yep. And I just saw this thing that I've never seen before. I'm like, this is where I'm going. Like, I knew it 4 years before I even got accepted. Like, this is where I'm going. So I was a curious kid because we had to be. I was also a very sensitive kid. Like, my mom calls me the daughter she never had to this day, which I own and love the fact that she sees me that way. I was also a pain in the ass. Like, my brother was the golden child. Like, straight A's in high school, Stanford, UCLA Medical School, UC Davis residency, chief of medicine for Kaiser Permanente, brand new home in Loomis, 2 kids, 2 labradoodles. Like, he's never had a cavity. And I'm not kidding. My brother's never had a cavity. I was the younger brother that was just hitting off at every wall. And it was hard because I was trying to fit in this Armenian family. I'm Armenian, surrounded by uncles and a father who were very successful. My mom's side of the family owns a mega $1 million huge produce distribution company in Fresno, California. My mom's other brother was the CEO of CBS, Fox, and HBO. Wow. My brother's obviously what he's in. So in a lot of ways, I was trying to always find myself as a person who felt really deeply, but knew I also had to achieve. And
you said had to. You felt driven to, or you felt obligated to?
I mean, it was probably a combination of both. It wasn't so much that, like, my parents are the sweetest humans I've ever met. I just completely won the lottery with that they were never, like, pressing, but it was somewhat understood. I think it's also part of the Armenian culture. Like, they came here, 100 years ago with nothing, and they had to work hard to try to establish a life, and they went for it. They worked. Nothing was beneath them. And they just did whatever they had to do to establish a life. And so I think for me and my brother, we're 3rd generation Californians, so we lost a little bit of that culture. But we definitely saw around us that hard work matters, values matter. Armenia was the first Christian nation, as they say. Like, Noah's Ark is supposed to be somewhere in Armenia. Oh. Now, we didn't grow up going to church, But there was certainly an appreciation of values, of do the right thing, of treat people fairly, of work hard, nothing comes for free. And so those were the underpinnings of it. And also, I think probably more than anything is like just loving your neighbor. Like relationships matter more than anything. And I got to see all of my friends wanted my parents to be their parents.
That's cool.
You know, I watched that my entire life. And so I feel like the luckiest kid in the world getting to grow up where I grew up and what I did experience. Having said that, it was almost too perfect. And as I got...
Explain to, like, what made it, not, what was the impact or implications of it being too perfect?
Well, how do I say this? And I don't want to sound so like white privileged in these labels that are out there now, but I don't know that I ever knew what it was like to struggle. I just, because I never did. Like, if I looked at the emotional spectrum of like what humans might experience, I was like, 80% this way with super positive being here. Like all the joy, happiness, love in the world, and over here, like complete hopelessness and despair. I was like 80% this way. And sure, my cat ran away, and sure, a girlfriend cheated on me, and I went through these, lost a grandparent or something, and I had hard moments. But I was always kind of marinated in this bath of like, you're gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be okay. And it wasn't till my breakdown years later that I realized that there was this other side of that perspective or that human experience that I'd never experienced before myself. It's not to blame my parents for making it too good, but I do sometimes wish that someone would have said to me, and I say it in this book, I wish I would have known at an earlier age, like, you know what, like life can have a warning label to it, and it could be really shitty, and you could go through some really dark times and have some really hard challenges, and it's okay. It's part of life. But until I was 31, I didn't know that part of life.
Got it. Well, what a special way to grow up.
Very special.
And even just being naive to the fact that there was this other piece of it. Like to have a too perfect upbringing,
yeah.
How wonderful. That's all we can hope for our kids, right? Like that's what we want to offer. And if they find this hard stuff, hopefully they can come back like you have, and your story's incredible of coming back from that.
That's right. Yeah, man. I mean, and the other part about Modesto is, trust me, I've been made fun of plenty for being from Modesto, California. It's just one of those things that people love to make fun of. But to this day, I'm 54 years old. To this day, when my parents still live in Modesto, when I go there, I say I'm going home. And when I come back to LA where I live, I say I'm going to LA. And that's never changed.
What's the feeling when you go back there? What's it like for you?
Oh man, it's just calm. I mean, it's home, right? I don't know how to describe that. It's the smells, the sounds, to hear the train in the middle of the night, way off in the distance, that horn, to see the orchards when they're in full bloom, to see the canals that we used to swim in. To this day, I mean, I'm still super close, like best friends with 8 guys that I went to preschool with. That's 50 years of friendship.
Yep.
That's pretty special.
Yeah, it says a lot about how you grew up and where, and
That's
the
right.
fact that there's still that community.
That's right. Yeah.
If
I met half of them today, we probably wouldn't be friends.
but that's all right.
Yeah, totally.
Time.
Totally.
But I mean, I mirror a lot of what you just said. How I grew up, my parents growing up here, friends since kindergarten. Derek Dundas is an example. What a lovely opportunity, because as we know, that doesn't last.
Nope.
And it's fleeting for most humans.
That's right.
To have that kind of a upbringing, especially in the world that we live in.
That's right.
Very, very blessed.
So
for
thank you for asking me about Modesto. I know.
No. It's amazing. And so you said that when you went down, so you played soccer until you blew out your knee, then you started playing polo, and you kind of found your place there. Did you love polo?
Man, that's a great question. I think polo is a horrible sport. I loved it when I was in high school because I was all everything, right? And breaking, scoring, whatever. Then you get to college, and especially a school like UCLA, D1, title contender every year, and you realize that one player on every team that used to give you fits are now all in the same program. And in high school, I was what they now call the center. It used to be the whole set. I was the big guy in the middle.
That people are climbing all over and trying to kick your ass and put you underwater.
That's right. When I got to UCLA, and I was 6'2" and 3/4, 190 pounds. When I got to UCLA, the 4 guys that played whole set or center were 6'3", 6'5", 6'6", and 6'7". And so really quickly, I had to realize I'm not playing that position anymore. Yeah. Fortunately, I was left-handed, and that there was a need for that in the sport to play that deep wing, and I had a great outside shot. I wasn't a fast swimmer, but I had a great shot. So it was work, man. It was. I didn't get the playing time I wanted. I never was a starter.
At UCLA.
At UCLA. I never was a starter, but I also saw, so the sport itself, I don't know that I loved, and other factors too. Like I think referees play way too big of a role in the sport. They can change the game in a heartbeat, and it's very subjective in the way they handle games. But what I saw was that being a starter isn't the only role on a team, and that everyone has a role to play on the team, whether that's the trainers, the recruiters, the players, the bench, right? Because I was on the team that the starters had to play in practice every day.
So your role was to make sure they were the best they could be.
That's right. And without that, your starters aren't getting better, right? I got put in charge. Actually, we should just have Derek here. Derek and I got put in charge of recruiting, like our sophomore year. And so every single recruiting class that came to UCLA for those next 3 years stayed with me and Derek.
Wow.
And we recruited some incredible players because of it. And so I saw those roles as that's where I could shine, because I wasn't going to beat the 6'7" dude in the center.
But you recognize the value that you had, where many people that are sitting on the bench, I sit on the bench, pardon my friend, fuck this, like.
Yeah.
But you're like, no, I know my role. Like.
That's right. And
I'm sure you would love to have,
of course,
appreciated or ascended to that role, but.
Without a doubt, I just understood it was about the team and not about me. And so, which is, I guess, is a lot of why I say I matter, but it's not about me today. And I think it's kind of a bummer in youth sports. I think they've gotten a bit out of hand. It's a bit of a tangent, but they've got out of hand these days. And it's not all about being a starter. You can be a leader in a lot of ways. For sure. Without PT.
I love that. And that goes back to your message throughout. Real quick, going back to high school. Overall experience in high school was good for you?
Incredible. I was homecoming king all 4 years.
How is that possible? I heard that, and I was going to lead you into it. It sounds like you're proud of it, so I didn't need to tee you up. But how is that possible? They didn't have any other guys? Like, were you the only guy in school?
Dude, I had 800 people in my graduating class, and I don't know how it's possible, because it's during football season. The football players hated me,
you for sure,
because I wore a Speedo. And every year they nominated me. It's hysterical.
The girls in Modesto must have appreciated a guy in a Speedo with a good physique versus guys in pads.
Wearing a crown.
Dude. 4 years? That's incredible.
Record breaking.
You are such a good looking man. That's really wild. I love that story. I was glad I heard it.
It's all about the personality.
Okay. So you go to UCLA and you play polo.
Yep.
And what was your direction in college? Where were you aiming? What was your degree?
I majored in communication studies, and I didn't know what I was going in there for, really. But I took a communications class, and the professor started just talking about these random human behaviors. Like, have you noticed when people go in elevators, they just stare at the numbers above the door? And they've done studies where even in 2-story buildings, where you can only go to the story you're not already on, they'll still stare at the numbers. And in fact, they even put duct tape over the numbers and people stare at the duct tape. And he started talking about these social norms and behaviors, and there was something about it that just fascinated me. To this day, because I'll talk about things like we've lost our ability to connect with one another. We stopped asking questions. We stopped leaning in and having meaningful conversations. And to this day, I'll talk about elevators. And it's become this thing where I will say hi to you in an elevator, and my wife thinks I'm creepy for doing it, but it's I think it's random just to ignore each other. So these things that he was talking about, they enamored me. And I also learned that it was kind of the broadest social studies major they had there, and it happened to be one of the top communication studies in the country.
Oh, wow.
So
That example made it sound way more like a psychology, like a human psychology or something course, but that was in the communications world.
well, so they call it the interdisciplinary majors. So you had to take psychology, sociology, anthropology. So all of those fit into that umbrella.
Got it. And then you decide to get your MBA.
Right.
Did that happen at UCLA concurrent, like adjacent to it? Did you take a gap, or did you just go straight into it?
Well, no, I took about a 3-year gap. So coming out of a graduate school, I got a job with M&M Mars, M&M Candy. And I went from being co-captain of the water polo team to 2 weeks later driving a Ford Taurus station wagon with M&Ms and Snicker decals all over it.
That is awesome.
Awesome.
Do you have a picture of that? I want to put that up on
I should try to find one for that. And then my territory was from Northridge to Mammoth Mountain, which is a massive territory. And in 2 years, I gained about 40 pounds because I had so much candy. I made a lot of friends because I had a lot of candy. And after the second Halloween season, I was like, man, I can't do this anymore. And cutting your thumbs with the case cutters and all that kind of stuff. And so I quit. Now, my father, as I shared earlier, worked for Gallo for 47 years in consumer goods. My brother, the golden child's doctor. I'm the only other son. My mom wanted 4 boys. After me, she said, if you were the first, you'd be an only. So there's only 2 of us, right? So it wasn't spoken, but it was slightly understood that I would probably follow my father's footsteps and go into the business side of the world, probably consumer goods. So when you quit after 2 years, what your father did for 47 years, different companies, you're going to have a conversation. And I had many father-son conversations, and it was, listen, what I thought you liked this, like this is good work for you, and he was disappointed. But I realized it wasn't the right role for me, and at the time, I don't know why I wanted to become a teacher. And so I started teaching an after-school program in Santa Monica. And I loved this program, but what I also learned is that a lot of they were the little ones. A lot of them either could barely swim or didn't know how to swim, but they certainly didn't have the joy for swimming that I have as a polo player. So I started teaching them how to swim after school, and then after the program and on the weekends. And all of a sudden I met this family in Beverly Hills, and I don't understand how, but they probably had 60 cousins, and they would bring me to their mansion every weekend, and they would just give me a new cousin every 30 minutes. And I ended up having so many swim clients that I quit teaching in the classroom, and started a swim lessons company called Polywog Aquatics. And so now I'm just having a time of my life teaching swim lessons, and then father-son conversation comes in. And it's like, did you really go to college to be a swim lessons instructor? And I remember telling him, Dad, they pay me cash. I'm super tan. I'm in the water all day. The moms all hit on me because their husbands are kind of absent. Like, this is cool. But I realized that he wasn't.
You're like the cabana boy.
Oh yeah, totally, dude. Getting invited on dates and stuff, and not that I went. But I understood what his point was, and so I said, okay, I'm sick of these conversations. I'm going to go into medicine and follow my brother's footsteps. And so I became an ambulance driver. Studied at UCLA to become an EMT.
Wow.
And on my first day of work, I saw the grossest thing I've ever seen. It was so stressful. I'm like, I can't do this. And so I quit on day 1. So now, like, my mother's
calls.
Dad
right?
and mom at this
mom.
point. Yeah. At this point, I'm like, I'm screwed. Just go back to school. So then I applied for UCLA Business School to go to the Anderson School to get my MBA.
Got it. So you go back because you're not. Did you have a target? Did you go, I really want to do, that's maybe the bigger question. You have a communications degree.
Yep.
You start and stop Polywog Aquatics. You're not going to be an ambulance driver. To keep mom and dad happy, I better go back and get my MBA. If I had a magic wand at that time and said, Matt, you can have any career in the world, what are you going to be? What do you want to do? Anything. Did you have an answer at that time?
I did. I did have an answer at that time. Not as specific, but I knew the vision. And there's 2 events that really had a profound impact on me. One of them was in 1984 when we came to UCLA and I saw the Olympics, like in person, those pastel banners hanging, and it was just bigger than life to me.
I was there too.
Were you?
Yeah, for the water polo.
Yeah. And so I saw that. The other thing that happened to me is I went to the U2 Joshua Tree tour in 88, maybe it was 84, I can't remember the exact year, at the Oakland Coliseum up in the Bay Area. And both of those experiences, they showed me something that was so much bigger than life. It was so powerful to see people come together either around sport or around music. And I remember being at the U2 show and turning around with 80,000 people, and there wasn't a single person not singing every single word, and not just having it truly a spiritual, like religious moment with this band. And it showed me something exponentially that it just drew me in. And so, yeah, man, there's nothing wrong with these jobs that are out there. It just, what I was seeing was far bigger. I didn't know what it was, but that's where my vision was.
Well, but what was it? It was something bigger, and you said you were inspired and drawn into the U2 experience.
Yep.
But did you make a music determination at that point, or was it just you knew you wanted to do something bigger? I'm going to get my MBA and see where it takes me? Was it more of that?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, MBA was buying me 2 more years.
God.
Yes.
And appeasing your parents.
And appeasing my parents. And the truth is, for 2 years I was there, I never felt like I fit in the whole time I was there. Yeah. It was so linear and boring to me. It was so not creative or entrepreneurial. It was, okay, do this, get 2 years, now you get a better paying job. And I found that rather not exciting.
Got it. It's interesting. I'm like, as you're talking, I'm thinking like the things that you've recognized. You're like, Europe, I saw there was so much more there. And, in Sherwood Forest, we had to be very creative. And then you go to music and it opened your eyes. You go to the Olympics, it opened your eyes. I went to UCLA. I knew I wanted to go there 4 years. Like you had, things were influencing you and things like really seemed to resonate with you.
Absolutely.
Even though you didn't know where it was going to take you, but you were starting to pick up on those pieces of, I like that, I don't like that. I'm not going to work in an ambulance. I'm not going to teach little kids. Like you're starting to do that deductive reasoning and experiential kind of flow through life.
That's right.
Even though because I would say some people know what they want to do. Like my nephew knew what he wanted to do, and he works at Intel, and he knew when he was 3, he was soldering at 3. I didn't know until after college, and I still didn't know for a few years. So, sometimes sounds like your brother probably knew what he wanted to do, and he had a path, and he went down it, and you're like, that path doesn't work for me. Is that?
Very absolutely. There's no doubt about it, and that can be hard though. It's even coming out of business school, I turned down 2 major job offers, and I go on this music journey that I'm sure we're going to cover
right now. Let's go.
And that was weird. Like people were like, "You're doing what?" Like,
what was weird? Turning down these 2 opportunities.
So I had a job offer.
I
had a job offer from Deloitte and Touche and from Procter and Gamble, and they were both nice, very nice, 6-figure paying salaries. I was in the season where I was trying to decide which one I was going to take, and that's when my best friend called me up, who was the lead singer of a band, just signed to Sony Records, a work group. And
is this a band we would know?
No.
Okay.
No. John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin produced their album.
Oh, wow.
And they brought me over on a Monday night in Brentwood, and we were watching football, and they pulled out some Budweiser and some stuff that used to not be legal. Now it is legal a lot of places, and some Domino's pizza. And they got me primed and ready, and they said, "Hey, we brought you here because we have a question for you. Will you be our band manager?" And it was like in that moment, like the seas parted, like the clouds became like animal shapes, and the stars were perfect constellations. Like, this is it. This is what I've been searching for my whole life, is to be a band manager. And so I turned down these job offers to manage a broke band in LA.
Was this did you take time, or did you decide on the spot after partaking in whatever pizza and other things, did you make a decision there, or did you take more time to think about it?
Oh no, we pulled out a Domino's pizza napkin. Now we're altered, but we pulled out a Domino's pizza that we made a contract right there, official on this napkin. It was done. Wow. And the next week I turned down my offers. I knew it. The next day I called them. I said, "We're having a meeting. Like, let's go." And again, sports like water polo, as you know, they teach you how to work hard, right? And so I put them to task. And in LA, there's a lot of people that say they're actors or they're musicians, and you say, "Okay, musicians, how often do you rehearse?" "Oh, about once every 3 months." "Oh, cool. How often do you play a gig?" "About once or twice a year." It's like, okay, so I'm 1 or 2 gigs away from me calling myself a musician.
Right.
No, it's not how it works. So I put them to task. We went to work, and it kind of spread. Like, he was this new manager in town who was putting artists to work. Because
You said plural. Artists? Did you pick up other artists?
not officially in the beginning, because these guys were also my best friends, and I had a dream. We all had the dream that they would be like the next U2. Like that was the big dream, and I poured everything into that, including my own money, to a fault. That was going to be the big dream. But to turn down those offers coming out of a top 10 business school to be a band manager is.
Well, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When you told your parents, Deloitte has pitched me, I've got this other one they pitched me, and I signed a contract on a napkin to manage a broke band.
Yeah.
Dad, Mom, what do you think? How'd that go?
Yeah, dude, not good.
Right?
No, not good at all. No, it really wasn't. And but at a certain point in time, I don't know if this crept into me a lot, but like I knew it was the right place for me to be, and I was kind of spirited to say, you know what, just let me be me, and just I'm going to show you that I can be me and make it happen. Just trust me. And it wasn't easy for them because there was nothing traditional about the direction that I was going. And then even in Modesto, you know, where there is wealth in Modesto, there is a very nice country club. How do you talk about that kid to your friends? You know,
I get it.
Right?
I get it. You and I were similar but different, but there's a lot of similarities in how you approach things and how our parents probably looked at those things.
Now, I will say this, that I'm not afraid to say that a lot of times when I didn't think my parents were right, they were. And I fought it tooth and nail.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm not afraid to say that. But I also not afraid to say that as I've grown older, that apple has certainly rolled way closer to the trunk of that tree than it was in those years.
Yeah, I always say, for a long time, I worked with my dad for 20 years, and I always said I fell off the mom tree. But I definitely hit a bunch of branches down on the dad tree, and there's a lot closer to the trunk of that tree than I ever maybe thought or wanted to recognize.
I get it.
For sure.
I get that.
So you're in the music business, and I want to get to that, to what you've created and why, and we're getting close to that pivot point. Talk real quickly. How long were you in music? What was it like for you? And then what happened?
So first, music was incredible. I don't have a musical lick in my body, but I've always appreciated. I think at one point in time too, another vision I had, probably because of the band Kiss, which I loved when I was a little kid. I wanted to be a drummer or a bass player.
Me too.
Really?
Yeah.
And so I had a drum kit when I was a kid. It lasted about 2 weeks.
Me too. Exactly the same.
Really?
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. It was like, Mom and Dad were like, no, this ain't happening. But to work with musicians, I mean, first of all, they were a pain in the ass. I mean, the egos were ridiculous. Everyone wanted to kill the lead singer, and I get it. It was a lot of babysitting to it for sure. But the creative side of it was mind-blowing to me. And to be in a recording studio, laying down the drum track, then the bass track, then the rhythm guitars, then the lead guitar, and then the vocals and the harmonies and just to watch that process come to life was one of those beautiful things I've ever witnessed. And we'd be in the studio for hours and hours and hours, and that to me was about as dreamy as it could get, and I loved that part of it. And so the gigs were fun. Of course, you're single. You're kind of being a jerk. You're the manager of a band that's selling out the Viper Room and the whiskey, and you kind of think you're.
You would have been mid-20s at that time, late 20s?
I would have been like 29 years.
Yeah, you're having a good time.
Yeah, I'm having a great time. Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And so life was good, and then.
What was your life like, in a nutshell? What were you? You're selling out the Viper Room. You are hanging with the bands. You're living the rock star lifestyle.
Yeah.
Were you taking advantage of that in many ways?
Yeah, I was taking advantage of that. I mean, I'm not proud of a lot of that. I mean, I absolutely objectified women, which I'm not proud about that. I never got into the drug scene at all, thankfully.
Good.
It just was never my jam. I still cared, really deeply. Like, I cared about the guys. I cared about our fans. I always wanted to put on experiences that were different than any other band. I had the pleasure of meeting you two down the road and working on projects for them. And from top to bottom in that organization, it was as pro as it gets. It was just so pure and classy. And I always wanted to have that as a reputation with projects that I was going to be a part of. But we were young, we were playing, we were partying late, we were being silly.
I'm totally jumping the shark here, but you're happily married. How old were you when you got married?
I got married at 43.
I got married at 40. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there was a reason I had to wait.
I wasn't marryable at that stage in my life.
Right there with you.
And then what happened is, I met Robert Kardashian, and Robert, in my mind, was the O.J. Simpson trial attorney. What I learned was that he actually had a very successful music marketing company up in L.A. And so he's Armenian, I'm Armenian. I thought I had the hookup, like I get to meet this guy, right? And so I meet with him one day, and I brought in like 3 artists on CD, those silver things we used to listen to, right? And I played him the music, and he didn't like the music at all, but he happened to really like me. And in that moment, he offered me a job as the senior vice president of his music marketing company.
Wow.
And that's a job I said yes to. And so I still
Did your parents approve of that one?
They liked it better, yeah, because now all of a sudden I had a paycheck, for sure. So I still kept, like the one main band I still kept on a management level. But then it was, really about projects for U2 and for Coldplay and Tim McGraw and Black Eyed Peas, and the list goes on. Keane, Snow Patrol.
So you made it when you got that job with Robert Kardashian's business. Like it's a whole different. I mean, you really elevated in that sphere. Is that correct?
Yes, and not just financially, but also just relationally. Status. So now, Robert had a contract with every major and indie record label in the industry. So now I'm going, to the Capitol building for meetings. Now I'm going, to Warner Music. Now, just the pool I was in then was totally different. The Sunset Strip wasn't really my office anymore. Now it's working with these major labels, and the work I got to do was equally as cool, just on a bigger scale. So now it's like concert promotion, album release stuff. It's, hey Matt, Avril Lavigne's coming out with a new concert DVD. And what do you say we do something big for her? Okay, let's partner with AMC Theaters. Let's have her show up at Times Square. We'll screen the film there. And then Avril will be there. She'll come out, sign autographs. I'm in charge of the whole thing. Never thought I needed to get permits for the thing. Next thing you know, Times Square shuts down. Like, this is now my new pool, if you will, that I'm playing in. I'm in a limo with Salman Rushdie, driving to the Anaheim Pond back in the day to go see U2, to be greeted by Paul McGuinness, their manager. I'm holding Bono's son while he's on stage performing. This is now my new life.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
So it looks very different.
A little different than Modesto
Yes.
partying in an apple orchard.
That's correct. Very different from Modesto. So with that then comes a whole nother layer of I'm a badassness kind of thing. Like, look at me.
How long were you in that role with that organization?
I was with Robert for just over 3 years until he passed away.
And then what happened?
When he passed away, it got ugly. Other investors wanted to buy it, and it got a little dirty, and I ended up leaving.
So what'd you do?
Well, before I ended up leaving, I actually ended up buying a house down here in Aliso Viejo. I thought, okay, this has been fun. I'm getting a little tired of it. I remember used to going to clubs and to even celebrity pool parties in the hills, and I'd be like, am I going to be that dude one day? He was,
Define that dude.
He was a dude that was 20 years older at least than everyone else who was there, still trying to pick up on 20-year-old models, and it just was like so gross to me and desperate. And I'm like, am I gonna be that dude one day? Because that's not the look I'm going for here. And so I randomly bought a house in Aliso Viejo, California.
As far from a party scene as you could possibly get.
Little did I know, it was like Truman Show,
Yes.
right? And I loved.
Meaning what?
It
what
was
your
just like,
experience?
here's my little square house, and it neighbors up to this one that looks exactly like it. And at the time, like this is a long time ago, this is 20 plus years ago, Lisa was still developing, but they were calling it like the greatest community in America kind of thing because of the way they laid out the city and the parks and the schools and it was like living in a resort town, really. And I would still commute up to LA like nearly every day or every other day, but I had this place in Aliso and things were good. I thought that everything was awesome. Like I'm still just chugging along here. And then a Monday morning came along. And
This is the proverbial pivot that
Yes.
changed your life.
that's right.
Okay.
This is the moment that changed my life. I woke up in the morning, started tying my sneakers, getting ready to drive up to LA. And in that moment, I felt my chest get tight. I had a hard time breathing for a second. I felt like the beads of sweat on the back of my neck. And I was just like, wait, something is just off. And I think I was 31 years old at the time. And I thought I was having a heart attack. So I did the not smart thing of getting in my car and driving to the doctor because I was an ambulance driver for one day. And so I was skilled. Excuse me. I drove out to my doctor. And he did tests on my heart, and we realized that I was not having a heart attack, but I was having a very severe panic attack. And I never really knew what a panic attack was before. As I shared with you, like most of my life was on this side of the scale, of good versus not good. And he said, you need to go home and rest. Like you're just shot right now, and eat and sleep and just try to heal, and you'll be better in a couple days. And unfortunately for me, that's not what happened. That my panic attack turned into chronic anxiety disorder and depression. And so this dream life that I thought I had built for myself basically came crashing down in a night's sleep. And
Wow. Well, let's stop there for a second and let me ask you this question. So you're working for the Robert Kardashian organization. He passes away, and you said it's crappy. And you at some point around there, you buy this house in Aliso Viejo. What happens after, career-wise, after the Robert Kardashian thing ends? Do you stay in music, or how far after that happened did this panic attack situation?
the panic attack actually happened right at the beginning of Robert.
Oh, the beginning of it.
So it was with the band management side of things, and then going into Robert, and things started really going crazy, taking off. Kim, Chloe, and Courtney ran the front office.
That's so
Every day. Brandy, Christina, Paris. It was this acceleration coupled with this realization, I think, that this dream that we had for this band Elephant Ride to become the next U2, I realized was ending. And there was something in the combination of that ending and the fast-pacedness of this new thing that got a little bit wild pretty quick. I think that's where the breakdown happened.
So chronology-wise, you said you worked with Kardashian for 3 years,
Yeah.
and you just said that this panic attack situation started at the beginning. So for 3 years, you worked for them after that initial panic attack situation.
That's right.
Okay.
And the day I left working for Robert, I called a good friend of mine, and his father is tie a yellow ribbon around John or Tony Orlando, the singer. Tie a yellow ribbon around those. And John Orlando owned a PR company in LA. And so I called John and I said, "Listen, man, I'm leaving Robert's company." He's like, "Well, get in your car and drive here. You already have an office and a job." So I drove straight over to his PR firm. And now I'm working on the PR team for clients. And the first client they assigned me, you'll love this, this is when online poker was kind of becoming a thing, was called Bombshell Poker. And it was hot chicks who could play poker. And so now I'm in charge of that brand. Right.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, super healthy place for me to be.
Oh
Right.
my gosh.
Yeah. So anyways, you back up a little bit. I'm living in Aliso. Things are feeling great. I have this morning. I break down. All of a sudden, I find myself in a really dark place. And I was crippled. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I couldn't look out my windows at night because I thought the sky was closing in on me. And I share this publicly everywhere I speak, is that the toll road, the 73 toll road, that was going to be the place for me. I was going to take my car up to 100 miles an hour, whatever, yank the wheel and say, it's it, I'm done.
It was that dark for you?
That dark. Oh, yeah.
For how long?
It was that dark for months and months, to the point where I wasn't sure how long I was going to be able to last this thing. And could I outlive it?
But you also, if I have it right, you were also, as you were dealing with this, you're still in the rock and roll scene with the Kardashian business.
Right, but also I couldn't drive in my car because if I got stuck in traffic, I tried to go to LA, and as soon as the traffic stopped, I had to turn around and go home.
Because of the panic attack?
The panic, yeah. And there was this part of anxiety and panic attacks is a sense of being stuck or trapped. It becomes very claustrophobic. And also, I couldn't fly in airplanes anymore because I could not physically get myself to step on a plane.
So, listen, this is the part that I don't know how much you've talked about. From this point forward, you talk a lot about it, and we're going to get there. But
sure.
Super curious. So, you have a diagnosis at this time
Yep.
of that's anxiety disorder and depression.
Yeah.
Are you getting the kind of help or advice to help you navigate through it, or are you spinning what's happening as you're trying to manage this for all those years where you can't drive in traffic, you can't fly in an airplane? So, and maybe what's your headspace? Like, there's a problem. Do you know what's causing it?
How do I answer this? So, at the beginning, it was a secret. Like no one could know. My family knew because I immediately called them like, I need help. Like I'm not well. Something's wrong. I need help. And so they came down here to Orange County, and my dad came for a week and lived with me. Then he went back, and my mom came for a week. And I still didn't know what this thing was, but I knew that I forget the cartoon, but there was this space like Trojan. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
And it's almost like this alien had taken over my brain and was just pulling levers, and I had no control of it. Like I could not have sat here right now with you for fear that something would go. I couldn't get my hair cut because I just couldn't sit in that chair long enough. And what if I created a scene? What if I had to get up and run away? I didn't know what this thing was happening in me. And the wild part about it is actually the Coyne family, everyone in my family was hell-bent on getting me married, right? And Matt, you're a great guy. You're going to be a great dad. We got to find you the right person. Either that or you're gay. We're not sure kind of thing. And so the night before that Monday when I broke down, I went on a blind date with a gal introduced to me by the Coyne family.
So funny.
And in the first 5 minutes of that date, I knew she wasn't the one. And I started to have a panic attack, but I didn't realize I was having one. And it wasn't until the next morning that I really realized I was having one. So it's a very foreign feeling. It's hard. You can't describe it to anybody. But I will tell you this, the level of compassion and empathy I have now for people who say they suffer from anxiety disorder or depression is now through the roof. So after about 2 weeks of I don't know what to do, I refused to take any medications. I did not want to take an antidepressant. I did not want to take Xanax. Finally, we said, okay, we got to surrender to this thing. And that was the word for me that I just kept saying to myself is surrender. Get rid of your ego. You're not well, and you need help.
Surrender means give in and go get help.
That's right. Okay. That's what it meant to me. And I got so lucky, man. I was introduced to, actually, again, the Coyne family. Auntie Judy introduced me to an amazing therapist she'd heard about here in Orange County. Her name was Denise McPhee. I call her my expensive friend. And I walked into her office just a ball of nerves. My mom, I think, drove me there because I just couldn't drive. And I just knew in that moment, she's the one, and wow. We're going to get to work.
Thank goodness, right?
Yeah, and I had hope, although I don't even know if it was 1% of hope, but I had 1% of hope all of a sudden.
Well, action and progress certainly drive some of that hope, right?
They do.
Taking action.
That's
Instead
right.
of wallowing in it or not knowing what to do, once you start,
yep.
hopefully that starts to drive, the flywheel a bit.
Yeah, and I remember my brother told me, he's like, Matt, one day I promise you, you're going to be grateful for all of this. And it makes me want to start crying because I don't know that I thought there could ever be a day that I was grateful for this. It was just that bad. And
does that mean that you are?
Absolutely. I wouldn't change any of it for the world. Yeah, and there's no way. I mean, it's one of those things that I didn't know if I was going to make it. So the idea of being grateful, that really didn't register at the moment for me. And then I guess to your point, Denise and I just went to work. It wasn't going to therapy once every 2 weeks.
No.
I'm talking like 3 times a week. It was checking myself, say, you know what, Matt, for now, take a freaking antidepressant. You need it. Your body's fried. Your mind's fried. Your heart's broken.
You're raw.
You're just an empty shell. Like, just do it. Take a Xanax. It's
and that
okay.
did that make it okay for you to do it?
Yeah. But again,
she gave you the...
Yeah, it was surrender. Just surrender. Whatever you did, the choices you made, the actions you took, the things you did, obviously, they got you here.
Yeah.
So you don't have the answers. And so trust in people that might, and surrender to what the journey they want to take with you and lead you on, and be willing to be open-minded, open-hearted, and put in the work. And that's what I did.
And look where you are today.
Right. It's
how over 20 years ago?
That's right. Yeah, 23 years ago.
So Matt Emerzian 2.0 has been now 20 plus years.
Yep.
And it's really, these are the stories that are so captivating and compelling to watch. And you've gone from like top to bottom to top.
Sure.
In the way I see it,
yeah.
Right? But what you've done, what you're doing, who you're influencing and affecting, and the message you share with the world. Like I think of when you're sharing a message like this, You Matter, in your books and all the vehicles that you use. Like I think it goes back to like, for me, it's like the people that develop, like the guy that made the bottle cap or the toothbrush. Like,
yeah.
Like I have brick and mortar retail stores. People have to come to me. You can go to everyone, everywhere, any language, any destination, especially these days. And I know that, yes.
Yeah.
Matter. So listen, thank you for that whole lead up to the pivot, and you're doing the work.
Thank you.
With Denise. Now we're going to go into where we are today and how you got here. So now we're to 2.0.
Yep.
So you've gone through, you're doing the work. Tell the story. And again, I know this can go super long, but like I want to get all the way through to all the things you're doing today, who you serve, how you ended up at Goodwill of Orange County today.
Yeah.
Because you call on and work with and serve so many communities at the highest levels.
Yep.
Out of this great message of You Matter. So let's talk about how you got to that first book, because I think that first book was like catalyst or pivot number 2.
1,000,000%.
So I'm going to turn it over to you to tell the story.
Yeah. So basically, it's amazing how things work in hindsight. Every Monday Matters, so much of what we do is actually built off of this journey that Denise took me on. I never realized it till years later. The first part of this journey was like my ship was sinking. Like it had holes. It was going down. We had to stabilize just who am I? What are my feelings? What are my thoughts? Like what's going on inside of Matt? The second phase of that was we started looking at relationships. So it turns out that the nickname, or one of the nicknames for anxiety disorder is the nice person's disease, or the people pleaser disease, where you say yes to everyone else except for yourself, and you start to lose yourself in it. So I had to look at who was I in my relationships. Did I have any boundaries? What are boundaries, right? And so what relationships are life-giving, life-taking? It's really examination and audit of that. And then the final stage is the one that really did it. And I came in one day and she said, this next part, and this is over years, right? This isn't like over a month. Literally we joke that I paid for her kids' college education and she saved my life. Like that's our joke.
And you were still doing the music world
I
at this
was,
time.
yeah.
Okay.
And no one knew that I was going through this. Yeah.
So you were living an alter ego. You had a mask on. You'd be at work.
Oh, yeah.
Because it wasn't remote work. You're driving to LA and you're
Yeah.
interacting with bands and music at the highest level with your suit on and your tie and you're pimping and
Yeah.
you're going hard.
Yeah.
And then you go home and you're somewhat broken and working with Denise 3 days a week and
Yeah,
doing
I mean,
the work.
years later, Denise said to me that when I showed up, I was an empty shell of a person. She didn't say that day one, but later she told me that. She also told me, which is funny, she's like, I also knew immediately you were such a player and there was no way you were going to play me.
Oh,
Yeah.
you were a professional player
Yeah.
just based on your time
And
in
it's
the
funny.
industry.
It's funny because Denise happens to look a lot like Michelle Pfeiffer, right? And she's like, no, we're not having that business.
That's so funny.
It's amazing.
She had your number right out of the gate.
Right. And so I came in and she's like, listen, Matt, I want to give the rest of your recovery a motto. And I want you to know that until you know what it means to live a life that's not about you, you're never going to truly feel better. And this was like, okay, I might be a bit of I was still a good person, but I might be a little selfish or narcissistic. I worked in a very narcissistic industry. I had thoughts of taking my own life several times, and you're telling me it's not about me. And so this math isn't working for me, which is kind of funny because it's narcissistic kind of in its own way. But she said, listen, I said, teach me. Again, surrender. I've trusted you this far. We've come a long ways. How do I learn it? And it was basically this Saturday, go out and pack lunches and go feed homeless people. Next Saturday, go pick up litter. Next Saturday, go plant a tree. Go read to elderly in a senior home. Go paint over graffiti. And every single Saturday, I started doing this thing that wasn't about me. Again, by myself. Like baseball cap on low, sunglasses, reputation to protect, right? And I would go out and do this thing. And for whatever...
In Aliso Viejo area?
That's right.
Yeah.
And also...
Your Hollywood riffraff aren't seeing you do this, right?
And also up in LA, too, I did sometimes. But for whatever reason, dude, picking up litter became my jam. And I just loved it. I would go out there by myself and I'd meet the Meals on Wheels people, the FedEx, UPS delivery people, the dog walkers, and the city was quiet, and I just really enjoyed it. And about 3 months into this every Saturday thing, I was picking up litter. Some buddies called me, said, "Hey, house in the Hollywood Hills, pool party, dudes doing push-ups before they take their shirt off. This whole thing."
Is that weird to do that? Is that a problem?
No, you don't need to do push-ups.
I mean, from a guy plays water polo in his
You're
underpants,
You're
right?
just permanent flex. So we're gonna come get you. I'm like, listen, guys. I'm out picking up litter. I'm totally cool. Have a blast. And I hung up the phone. I was like, oh no, I just outed my secret for the first time. And then I thought, but wait a second. This is exactly what Denise was saying, that I actually, by living a life that wasn't about me, by picking up other people's trash, I actually started to find myself again. And it just was a bingo. And I'm like, I want to write a book. And I've never had thoughts of writing a book in my life, ever. I didn't even like reading.
So what was that lightning bolt that said, let's go write a book? Like, what was it? What do you think?
I just said, you know what? Maybe, I remember I thought, maybe I'm not the only person in the world trying to find purpose in all the wrong places. And my thought was, I remember I kind of became crazy about this trash picking up thing. And I had learned that we smoked at the time, we smoked over 300 billion cigarette butts a year in America. Cigarettes a year. And of those 300 billion cigarettes, we littered 100 billion of the butts. And I did this math equation that if you put 100 billion cigarettes butts together, they go from LA to New York 337 round trips a year. And so basically we built the cigarette butt freeway across our country every year, yet we still question if we have environmental issues, another topic.
Yes.
But I thought, what if I could just get one other person to go out and pick up one butt? What if we all went out today at this time and all picked up one cigarette butt? What if I get companies to do it, or churches to do it, or schools to do it? We could literally get rid of these issues if we all just did something little that wasn't about ourselves. And in doing so, we just also might change our own lives. And I probably had the sarcastic thought of, you know what cost me $25,000, I can help people for $16.99 in a book kind of thing. And so I'm like, let's go. I want to write this book. And it was basically a book you do once a week. And I ended up calling it Every Monday Matters. Instead of Every Saturday Matters, I called it Every Monday Matters because my breakdown was on a Monday. That Monday changed my life forever. Also, the truth is I never knew why people don't like Mondays. I've always loved Mondays. Even when I was a little kid, I get to go back to school, see my friends, like start the new week, what's possible this week. I love Mondays. I think thanking God for Fridays is weird. So and having restaurants named the same is even weirder. So Every Monday Matters was the first book. And in 2007, it came out.
What happened when that happened, when it dropped? What was the response, reaction, and impact on you?
I was still working in music. The book came out. Actually, at that point, I was working for the PR firm. I was working on Bombshell Poker, writing this book on the side, printing it at the office after hours to create samples of it to send to publishers. The book comes out, and about a month after it came out, I received an email from a woman named Darby who lives in Palm Springs, California. And Darby explained this scenario where she was driving down the road, saw a car pulled over on the side of the road with the door open and a woman hanging out of the car. And so Darby decides to pull over for whatever reason. She discovers that the woman was not there because of car trouble, but she was there to commit suicide. And Darby emailed me the story, and the last sentence of it said, "If it weren't for your book, I would have never pulled my car over." When I got that email, I was like, man, I don't know what this is. I never saw this book saving a life. But it was that moment for me to say, I have to go down this journey. And the next day I walked away from the industry.
The next day?
Yeah.
After that message?
Yeah. I'm like, this is what I have to go do with zero plan. I had a book and a MySpace page.
What was her name that wrote you that?
Her name was Darby.
Does Darby know that?
Oh, yeah.
So you reached out to her?
Oh, yeah,
and
for sure. Yeah.
Thank you, Darby.
Thank you, Darby.
She's changed.
Yes.
I don't want to overstate it, but like she's helped change the world with what you're providing.
Yeah.
It's really incredible.
Yeah.
I love that story.
And you might remember this. This was back when San Diego had like 46 fires at the same time. Like San Diego was just ablaze. And I started this MySpace page. I was working from home. And I put out this thing like, hey, let's do something that's not about us. Let's figure out something to do to show these firefighters how much we appreciate them. And a ton of people jumped in. It was so random. They're like, this is awesome. Like, let's go. We visited like 26 fire stations or something crazy like that. And people all of a sudden were like, I get it, man. Like, I want to make a difference in the world. I want to be a life changer. I never knew how I could do this, but this book makes it so easy. I just have to do this one thing each Monday. Like, it's a recipe for, my friends called it like the dummy's guide for being a better human kind of thing. But I didn't have any plan for the book other than I was enjoying the energy that it was picking up. And then a few things happened. Number one, the Modesto Bee called me, which has a readership of like 12 people, and asked if I would write a column for the Modesto Bee every Monday. So I started writing a column for the Bee. It got syndicated by McClatchy, started to spread across the country. Then educators started reaching out saying, hey, we need lesson plans based off this book. Our students, our kids need to learn these lessons. So I went up to Northern California. I sat in a 10 by 10 room with a bunch of educators. We ended up writing a school curriculum based off my first book and for K through 12. And I started selling that for $500 a pop. It was on CD-ROMs and DVDs. So it was like getting a season of Friends kind of thing, nine jewel cases. The first ones that showed up that I ordered, the designers forgot to put one of the T's in matter, so it said "you made her" on 5,000 jewel cases, like I could sell in Australia and England.
Right.
Then Forrest Whitaker bought my book and went to Obama's first inauguration and handed it to a woman named Oprah Winfrey. And now I get a call from Harpo wanting to do a partnership. And then Stephanie Gallo from Gallo Wine calls me, says, Matt, I'm having this offsite retreat for 70 marketing executives in Napa. Can you come lead a 6-hour experience? I said, oh, sure, Steph, that sounds great. No idea what I was going to do. What would you charge for that? I don't know, like $2,000? She's like, excuse me? I'm like, is that too much? She's like, no, you should charge me at least 20. And so these things just started kind of coming. And as the need came in, I was like, okay, I can create program 4 and then to serve that need. And so next thing I know, I have employees. They're on card tables in my home all over the place. I have boxes everywhere of curriculum stuff, jewel cases, T-shirts, wristbands. And we're kind of cruising. Like, this has become a company. And I think we're doing like $3 million or something in sales at the time. And it was a blast. And then I was asked to go speak to a group of convicted felons up in Northern California. And a judge was using that book as part of a restorative justice program. And every Monday they were doing a page from the book. And I got there, and the judge greeted me in the courtroom. She opened the door. These men and women walked in, full prison jumpsuits, ankle chains, waist chains, handcuffs. And I can say this to you because I think you'll appreciate it. They were also making them wear socks with their flip-flops.
Yeah.
Which
super good look.
Yeah, and really comfortable.
Right, really comfortable. Yeah.
And she said, so everyone, here's Matt. He wrote the book that we're doing. So Matt, why don't you go ahead and share? And it was this moment of like, I don't even know where to go here. Like, I don't even know how to relate to them.
Right.
But I talked for like 15 minutes. I don't really remember everything I said, but at the end of it, I gave them all one of the wristbands that says, "You matter" on it. And one of the guys, and you can imagine putting that on handcuffed wrists. So it's a handcuff that says "You matter" next to the handcuff. It's a visual all number.
Yeah.
One of the convicted felons, he stood up, and he is 6'6", 300-pound Hispanic guy, and he's like, "Listen, bro," he's like, "No one's ever told me that I mattered before, and that's why I ended up where I am today." And he just started sobbing on my shoulder, and I just hugged him. And it was in that moment that I realized that this idea of mattering was far bigger than I ever thought it was. That, yes, we should be of service. We should pick up litter. We should plant. We should do all these things. But it moved it from this place of being of service to others to also this hole that I think that so many of us have in our heart of, what is this life all about? And who am I? And I didn't ask to be brought into this world. But one day I was born, and all of a sudden I have to navigate this thing called life, and it's beautiful and it's messy and everything in between, and I just saw the struggle, I think, for people trying to answer questions that were really hard to answer, and so I decided, and I also had this thought of, if we get a roof over everyone's head and food in their bellies and a cure to every illness and disease and clean water to drink, but we don't know why we matter, like, then what's the rest of it anyways? And so I decided to flip this for-profit company that I had into a nonprofit organization and to take on mattering as a cause, which was another one of those head scrabs. People are like, dude, what are you doing? I'm like, no. Mattering is as big of a problem in our world today as is lack of clean drinking water. We have got to take this on in a whole different way. And so I ended up changing to a nonprofit, and that was 13 years ago.
An incredibly bold move.
Yeah, maybe not the brightest.
Right. Well, I mean, we could, and I would love to go down the road. I mean, it's interesting because here's a guy with an MBA that has identified an opportunity to create this really good thing for the world, takes a for-profit to a nonprofit, which changes your whole thing. Kind of, you at the very beginning, you talked about Jennifer Friend and making a decision, go from very successful attorney to running a nonprofit. You did the same thing.
Right.
And there's probably a ton of valuable discussion in there for other people that run nonprofits, because we could have a whole conversation, a whole nother podcast about the challenges and opportunities and what you need to make a nonprofit work. Mm-hmm. Because you can have the best, I say it a lot because I have a lot of people like you and Jen in here. You can have the best vision in the world. You can have the best, or you have to have the best vision. You have to have the best leadership. You have to have total community support, and you have to have outstanding fundraising.
Yep.
Without any of those,
Yep.
it doesn't succeed. And it's hard.
Very.
The fundraising part, because most people may get to be good and successful at fundraising, but nobody loves doing it. That's not true. Some people do. It's a hard thing to constantly have to ask to support an organization. So let me just give you huge praise for that, because you knowingly, as an MBA, you knew exactly what you were signing up for. And it's a huge selfless move, because the way I see it is you saw the need in the world to do this, and that's basically what you said.
I did. And I think at the time when it was a for-profit, I had this vision of I'm going to build this thing up, and maybe one day I'm going to sell it to Hallmark or something like that. I still had those visions. Like even when Robert was sick, really quickly, Robert, when the day he left the office, last time I saw Robert until the day before he passed, I said, hey, he was leaving for cancer treatments. I said, hey man, be strong. I'm praying for you. I love you, and we'll see you soon. And he said, if the cancer doesn't kill me, the thought of you running my company certainly kills me. So I'll be back. And so I had this thought of like, okay, I can't see this man who I love dearly, like a second father, who was just so kind to me in my career. So my friend Kelly Boza, who lives here in Orange County, she and I started doing this thing where we print these cards, and they'd have inspirational quotes on them, song lyrics, whatever. And every day on the way to work, I'd put one in a blue mailbox without a return address to Robert's home address. And the day before Robert passed, the family called me and said, listen, Robert, we'd like you to come see Robert. And I got there, and every single one of these cards was taped on the wall above his hospital bed in his house. So there was this thing in me that was brewing of wanting to do that thing that impacted more people, and knowing that I could have an impact on more people. We ended up calling that 40 Days of Love, and people can order a set of cards from us for $80, and for 40 days we would mail their person a card. We lost money on every order, right? And then it became this Every Monday Matters book. And at the end of the day, what I realized is like the focus for me was impacting lives. The blessing of changing from a for-profit to a nonprofit that I didn't know was coming was that I don't own this anymore. It's not mine. It's this thing that's out in the world that I've had the pleasure and the pain of shepherding to my best ability to bring this to people. But Every Monday Matters is as much yours as it's mine.
It's such an interesting distinction. I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah, that's
and
lovely too.
And I just got to let go. And so now my job as the founder CEO is I just need to share this with the world. If people connect to it, amazing. But all I can do is build a team of the biggest hearted, biggest minds I can to say, hey man, here's Every Monday Matters. I've gotten it this far, but I don't have all the answers. If it speaks to you, let's go. And there was a release that happened when I no longer owned this company that I wanted to sell to Hallmark like I did 40 Days of Love. It was a major surrender release again that actually allowed it to even grow quicker than it was when I owned it and was squeezing it so tightly.
That's amazing. And it's so big. It's so much bigger than, not that it's so much bigger than you. You're the one that on your shirt, like Superman. But it resonates. It's gone so far and so wide. Couple questions. Do you know how many books have been printed?
Of my books?
Yeah.
It's a couple 100,000. I mean, it's not, I mean, I think that only 95% of books don't sell more than, I think, 5,000 copies or something like that crazy.
So you're in the top 5% of books.
Yeah, my books have done all right. You're not going to get rich selling books.
No.
But they still want more out of me, so I guess they've done something well.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah. And how many languages?
They've been in 3 languages.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm about to start my 5th one.
Can you share the direction that's going to focus?
Well, as I look back again, I've realized that the work that we've been doing, as much as it seems like it's tail wagging the dog or us following the need, there's actually a lot of thought to it and framework to it, and what we call the mattering mindset. And there is a framework that we have thought through from actually to your first letter that you wrote about your son's school. That in the middle of this idea of that we have to believe that mattering matters. That when people understand how much they matter to themselves, to each other, to the world, it changes everything. So mattering is at the core of the framework. Outside of that is I matter, you matter, we matter. So understanding those perspectives. Who am I, good, bad, to ugly, my ability to impact those around me, and that we're a part of something bigger and better together. After you get to that, the next layer, and we ask this question all year long, what is one word that you think our world needs more of today? And we collect these words. So if you want to share a word, you can. But the idea is that we are trying to constantly get our finger on the pulse of how does humanity feel as a whole. I could tell you 10 years ago, we need more fun. We need more laughter. We need more play. Today, we need more compassion. We need more empathy. We need more love. The words have changed so much. So all of a sudden now, we're pulling these values, and we've assigned values to this idea of I matter, you matter, we matter. So it becomes that how do you operationalize these values into people's lives, into systems, into companies, into schools, into now senior living facilities. And then you create these experiences, whether it's a school curriculum, whether that people can take action. So it's like, again, like you said, your thoughts to your beliefs, to your taking action, to your reality, right? This is the same exact progression that we take people through, but we call operationalizing mattering. And at the end of that, you change the future of education. You change the future of work. You change the future of senior living. But it's done from this process. So the new book is probably going to have something to do with the mattering mindset and how that can play out in individual lives and also in different ecosystems.
Got it. And thank you for that.
Yep.
And it's exciting to see what you come up with next. Clearly, this message is having an impact, and it's, I mean, you speak with and speak to, and I'll let you talk about it, some of the biggest companies in the world. There's a reason. And they come to you. You don't go to them.
Right.
Why do they come to you? What is it that a Google is looking for, or a Keels, or, I mean, there's the list is very long of who you speak to.
Sure.
Or Goodwill, Orange County.
Right.
What is it that CEOs or teams are trying to provide when they bring you in to their team? What are they looking for? Why you?
Well, I think from if I start with like a business need perspective, maybe they have a retention issue, turnover issue. Maybe they have an engagement or lack of engagement issue. Maybe this their total well-being. Maybe they just did a sentiment survey and they're seeing that their culture is off. So from a business needs perspective, like those are kind of the boxes that I check. And again, I do a keynote, but behind that keynote, we have a series of workshops. We have ongoing annual programs we do inside companies for 7-8 years at a time. To really, transformation doesn't happen in a 60-minute keynote. It takes work over time.
But that's the word, transformation. You're there to help a company transform some element or elements in their team, their culture, their environment,
That's right.
their thought processes, their core, whatever. You're a transformative leader.
That's right.
Gotcha.
And I just wrote something for the first time. I've never shared this, so no one steal it. That I'm in the speaking industry and in the corporate world, the most popular term right now is profitable growth. Every company is looking for profitable growth. And you can go anywhere up and down that ladder of how do we get, but the holy grail is this profitable growth. We have to look at, leadership, products, services, culture, engagement, all of these things, but that's the dream. And for the first time, I wrote down that profitable growth can't happen without personal growth. And so if I speak to a leader that doesn't believe their people matter, they're not going to book me. I wish they would, but they're not. And but there happens to be people out there that do believe that their people do matter, and that there's no way that they're going to achieve their goals organizationally if they don't help people thrive and grow personally and grow professionally. To not just give jobs, but give careers. These sorts of things, like one company, ServiceNow, they called me the thought leader of humanness or something like that, which was like a huge compliment to me.
Huge. I saw that. It's incredible.
Yeah. And so I'm unorthodox. I don't come in with slides. Can
I say thank you?
Yeah, please.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I want to make a room of 2,000 people feel like a room of 2. I want to go on a walk. Let's go for a walk on the beach and talk. And really just get down to this, what does it mean to be human again? And how can we help each other on this journey? And if we're all looking for connection and purpose and meaning and a sense of accomplishment, you can find all that at work. if the place of work creates a space where you can have that at work. And that's why I think in some ways, like if companies truly embrace this, they could be the biggest solution to this epidemic of loneliness that we see today, to this complete lack of connection, to this social media taking over all of us. All work could be, it's not happening at church anymore. People are fleeing the church like crazy. The trust in the institution's never been, distrust has never been lower. I really think there's an opportunity for companies to rise up to say that we can become that place where people come to get every itch scratched. And in doing so, they will help us scratch all of our it as well.
Hallelujah. I think, and thank you for, I agree 1,000,000%. I think that's why Jennifer introduced us initially, because what I found through reading your stuff and listening to your speeches is that you've articulated and created like a framework around all the terms that I've always used. I mean, our whole business model is customer service and environment.
Yep.
You know, make it a great place to work, makes for a great place to shop.
That's right.
We can't have one without the other. And of our core values, I always say that we have, like, using the football analogy, we have, if you take our two of our 10, be their hero and have fun. Those are the uprights that I want our teams to be kicking the ball through.
Yep.
Everything else supports it, but those are the two. And everything happens when you have empowered, happy, engaged people that want to be there. You can't get great customer service from somebody that's miserable. It just doesn't happen.
No.
So everything, like you use all the language that I totally believe in. And so before I knew you, for me, it was just words. And now I have this whole strategy around it, which I've learned from you. So thank you for that.
You know what? You made me think of something, actually. I never worked in the food industry, for example. I was never a waiter or a server or anything like that. But for a while, in a place I lived in LA, there was this little Mexican restaurant. And sometimes, the family owned, and sometimes they would get overwhelmed with business. And I would just hop up and go back in the kitchen, and I would say, let's go. I'll be the salsa chips guy. You know, don't pay me. Like, I love you guys. And so I would be, that little experience that I used to do, it brought this idea that when someone is a waiter or a waitress or a server, there really is an opportunity there to truly serve someone. Like, you could just go and just drop down the water and walk away. You can, not be attentive and aware of their needs. But you can really take this opportunity and truly say, hey, how are you today? What are you feeling? And really actually having a meaningful experience, even at a table with the server. One of the things that I do when I go to restaurants is when the server asks me what I want, I ask them, what do you like? Do you have any recommendations? I don't do it because I'm going to order what they said. I just want them to feel seen, right? This really cool thing can happen there. With you and your customer service, what I thought about this, and this is the idea, I matter, but it's not about me. So if you as a company, with all your values and what you guys do in management, create a space where people feel like they matter, like I matter here, then we can set them up to say, but it's not about me, and then be of the best service they can to the customer. It's the same statement, I matter, but it's not about me, right? But if you're not creating that space for them as well, then they can't be in a place to serve the customer and make it not about them either.
Yes. I love that. Matt, if somebody wants to get good, not good, that's not the one. If somebody wants to go down the path of figuring out how they matter, if they want to improve their life through your systems, what do you recommend?
I think that the best place to start, and this sounds like such a commercial, man, but I think that this book right here, this is my favorite book of the 4 I've written. I think is a great place to start. The other books are also great though, because it just changes up your cadence. It gets you doing these things that aren't about you. I feel like a lot of times we get in these ruts, we get in our routines to kind of snap out from some of that. But I mean, personal transformation, if you will, there's a lot of layers to it. And I think for starters, it's, are you really ready for the journey? Like, are you really ready to say, yeah, I want to, they call them spirit junkies or whatever. Like, there's people that consume this stuff like crazy. I mean, the self-help industry is massive, right? But I'm in some ways I feel old school now. Like, I really got clear on like, what values do I stand for? legacy. I think about legacy a lot, and legacy used to be this thing that I thought people just thought about before they die. Now I realize that no, my legacy is right here today. And what do I want my legacy to be then? And it's almost like this reverse engineering. Yes, you matter, but you have to understand the other side of, like, we're just not here to just work to the bone and make money, and that's not why we were put into this world. There's something bigger to find. It's this internal examination of what are your gifts. There's only, of 8 billion people in the world, there's only one of you. Like, there's only one Mark in the world out of 8 billion people. Like, by definition, you matter. Like, I could just leave here and just say, wrestle with that for a second.
Yeah.
Only you have the certain gifts you have, the combination of things that you have. Learn that, massage it, understand it, and then how do you share those gifts with the world? So there's so many layers, I think, to this. And maybe it's the I matter, you matter, we matter framework. Understanding who am I, the good, the bad, the ugly of that. Where do I want to improve? What can I work on? What do I want to get rid of? What do I do well that I want to do more of? It's the you matter side. Now my relationships, looking at that, how do I impact those around me? Am I nice or am I a jerk? Do I cut people off? Do I let people go in front of me? Like, all of these things we can start to look at. And then the we matter, are you a part of something bigger? Are you a part of a team, a community of any sorts? Do you know your neighbors? Like, I think it's like 78% of Americans now don't even know their neighbor's name.
That's terrible, huh?
It's horrible. So it's not rocket science stuff, right? It's very basic, but again, it's back to, like, we just got to get back to being human again, and it's not complicated.
No. If everybody went down, if the whole world took one of your courses or sat in and listened and learned about, you matter from Matt Emerzian, what might happen?
I think they'd hold their head higher. I think they could look in the mirror and actually smile at themselves, and the words they would use with their self-talk might be a little different. I would think that they would really start to understand the value of relationship and our need for it in our lives. And I also think that this idea of making an impact on the world, of what do I contribute to, and how do I contribute? And contribution to me is a huge word. It's become a bigger word for me more and more. And how can I contribute? And I have a friend who used to tick me off. He'd say, Matt, contributing or doing acts of service is really just a selfish act. It's, you just do it because it makes you feel good. And my response to him was, well, then let's make the most selfish fucking world we've ever seen, and see what that looks like.
Yeah.
Because
I was going to say, it goes back to, it's not about you.
That's right.
Right? I'm a big Tony Robbins fan, and that process helped me when I needed help.
Yep.
And one of the things that they say is that, if you focus on others, you do not suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that may not be 100% true, but if you focus on others, service, contribution,
yep.
It's not about you, everything you're saying. And that's what I find, and I don't know about other people that will listen to this, but what you follow on social media follows you. So if you follow Matt Emerzian and the Tony Robbins and all these people that are on, in the middle on your
yep.
podcast, you start to get goodness in your feed.
Yes.
If you go down the political side or you go down to the dark side, that's what ends up in your feed. And I'm fortunate I go down the Matt Emerzian side, and so I get tidbits of everything, and you start to hear these real commonalities that then all of a sudden I find in my kids' curriculum at their new school. And you're like, people are starting to understand and hear you,
yeah.
and are looking for tools to solve the problems that so many of us are dealing with, which is understanding why you matter and how to get better and better and better, or happier, whatever the answer is, by doing some of this work.
That's right. But it really requires a shift, because my books all end up in the self-help section of bookstores.
I was going to ask you what genre you think you are. If again, genre may be even a bad word.
Yeah,
You're like, I don't want to be a genre.
I'm a genre of one. My books end up in self-help section of the bookstore. I hate that section because I don't believe that self-help exists on its own. I don't live on my own private island with a volleyball named Wilson. That like I live in a social construct. Like who I am is informed by you as well. In Africa they call it Ubuntu. Like I am because of you, we are because of we. So this idea of self-help, I can't just only work on myself and think about myself. So I have to look up and look out, right? Another belief in our culture that I think is way off is that we have to learn how to love ourselves before we can love other people. I think that's also not true. Because I learn a lot about myself when I actually also love on you. And you learn a lot when you love on me, because that's the nature of relationship, right? It's not one directional. And so for me, I didn't know, I thought I mattered way back when for all the wrong reasons. For, wealth, success, women, whatever, that whole thing. I had to relearn why I mattered. And the way I relearned why I mattered was making it not about me. It wasn't by trying to figure out how I could matter the most. It was like, you know what, I'm going to go be of service. And in that journey, somehow, I found my mattering, right? So these belief systems that we've had, it starts with self-help. It starts with loving yourself first. Yes, there's a lot of value to that, and I get it. It's not the whole story, though, because it's just not how we live. And the more we open up to each other, the vulnerability, the authenticity, a lot of these things that until we're able to do those things and really truly see each other and connect with one another and not judge each other, but accept each other, this is all the stuff where I think all the transformation happens, not just personally, but also socially.
And we need that now more than probably ever in our lifetimes. Right?
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Listen, I have a question for you, and we're going to round it out in just a moment. If I had a magic wand, I asked you this earlier, but if I had a magic wand and you could do anything to impact the world, whatever, you get one wish, one whack. What might you do?
My magic wand, man, you have good questions. My magic wand would be that every Monday Matters, the nonprofit organization goes out of business.
Because it's not needed anymore?
That's right. Because the world knows why it matters.
I love that. I'm going to ask myself the same question.
Okay.
So, the end result is the same as your answer. So if I had a magic wand, I would hope that everybody has a Matt Emerzian on one shoulder, whispering in their ear all of the mantras and all of the tools that you prophesize and you talk about, because we all know that on the other shoulder are the dark thoughts, the world pressures, the everything in our feeds.
Yep.
Having you on one shoulder would be a wonderful thing for everybody out there.
Well, thank you, man. And I also want to just be honest and transparent too with your audience, and that it's not always all hunky-dory for me either. I still have moments, where I feel sad, I get afraid. Sometimes I'm even maybe, I don't know if depressed, not like I was before, right? But it's not like I just leave this. I'm still human. Yeah. And life has seasons, right? And we move, along this thing of like sometimes it's better and sometimes it's not. And so, I put in a lot of work, and I've launched this thing and started this thing, but I'm far from perfect. I still have unanswered dreams and things I want to do, right? And so I want to be careful that I haven't built this glass house that, around me, because it couldn't be any further from the truth. Like, I'm such a work in project. You can just ask my parents, actually.
Well, listen, one, I think your parents they've got to be very, very happy after everything you went through or took them through. Two, I think everybody's in that position that you're in. I don't think you created anything, but you've created tools for those of us when we're there to help get ourselves to a better place. Tools and tactics to help us improve. That's all we're looking for.
And the other cool part about this is that when I ask people what does mattering mean, they say to feel loved, to feel seen, to feel valued. And we asked this for years. What we realized as a team was that it was missing something. And it was missing what can I do for other people to help them? And so maybe a good takeaway for people is the way we define mattering is for all of us to embrace our role in creating a world where everyone feels seen, heard, and loved. So just because you might be on the top of the mountain, your work's not done, because there's someone down here that needs you to lift them up.
That's incredible. Listen, and we're going to put a pin in it right there. That was such a great way to close this. I want to thank you. Matt, you're amazing. I want to give you huge kudos for what you've done, how you've done it. I so thank you for sharing your story, the whole story with us, and really being open about everything that you've gone through and how you've gotten here, and that you're not perfect. And I think I probably would have guessed that anyway. But no, this was such a wonderful thing, and thank you for everything you're doing. There's so much. Anybody, you can go out and find so much more about you and hear your TED Talks, etc. Where can people find you? What's the best place to direct them?
Yeah, I mean, the nonprofit website is everymondaymatters.org. My personal website, MatthewEmerzian.com. LinkedIn. I'm a horrible Instagrammer. So, my email is Matthew@everymondaymatters.com. You can email me.
There you go.
Yeah, my phone number is 310-704-7040.
All right, open book. Listen to you.
Hey, man, if it's a mission, it's a mission.
Hallelujah.
You know?
Thanks for what you do. You're a true inspiration. I'm so grateful for you.
You as well, man. And I will say this. Thank you for all the incredible questions. I don't know if I've ever been on a podcast like this where I've been asked so many questions about so many parts of my life that I have never been asked before. But in all of it, it was also hard for me because I wanted to ask you so many questions, but I just allowed myself to sit in me being the one to answer. And I appreciate you creating that space.
Well, thank you for not turning the tables on me. I know that's your natural place, so thank you. I appreciate it. You're then, Matt. Thanks so much.
All right, you too.